Trailer editing is a dangerous profession, not unlike that of Mary Shelley's titular surgeon. The carrion mass of raw footage must be incised and spliced into an elevated form that is not only functional, but appeals to an already overexposed audience. There are few such artisans who have risen to the level of skill as our guest tonight, Mr. Nick Davis. Welcome.
Thank you. That was really good and really spot on. Well spoken.
Thank you. No, Nick, welcome to the Miscellaneous Film Festival podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Kristen.
And please tell us about your illustrious career and who you are.
I'm Nick Davis. I'm an editor. I do I do a lot of trailers. Used to do more trailers, but I've been editing. I've edited movies. I've edited documentaries. Most of my work I do is in advertising because, you know, when you're a first generation filmmaker, you kind of, that's where the money is. If you want to do something and you got a skill, it's just like, well, they're not paying me to do movies, so I'm going to make ads. So that's what I do. And trailers kind of now are more of a hobby for me because I do more indie films.
Okay.
And the indie films don't really pay much, so you got to supplement it with the commercials. But when you do work on those, they're really rewarding, even though sometimes they never see the light of day because they never pick up distribution, or they cut a different trailer along the way because somebody wants something else. So it's kind of it's a little thankless, but it's fun because after a couple of years, once it gets released, you can put whatever your cut is on your reel, and it's fine. No one says anything because no one cares.
Right on. I met you from a course you were teaching at Movie Madness here in Portland, Oregon, in connection with the Hollywood Theater.
Yes.
They had a lot of behind the scenes, like movie making or movie analysis courses, but I was really drawn to yours because it was all about trailers, one of my favorite parts of movies. And that's no joke. Like growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was one of those kids that insisted that the time when the trailer started was not bonus time, where you could be a little bit late to the theater. That was the one way you would know when the next Jurassic Park was coming out.
Yeah. That was it. That was the previews that you would get, and it didn't matter how many there were. Now they're exhausting because you see them everywhere. But back then, it's like they were only at the movie theater. You can only see the full ones there. When I first got into it, I didn't realize it was a job. I thought like everything, it's kind of a Wonka factory. Like the studios have their division where they make all the trailers, and those people are locked in rooms and do their thing. Mm-hmm. And I was working in commercials as an assistant, and I didn't realize for 3 years I was working for this one company, Union Editorial, and their sister company was a place called Ignition. And Ignition did trailers. It was a trailer house. It was like, it's an ad agency, but like where an ad agency's teams are producers, art directors, writers, and creative directors. A trailer house is producer, trailer editor, graphics person, and creative director. That's kind of their ad agency. So you got a lot of people working on a lot of different things, but it's run by editors because you're dealing with not even necessarily a finished product, but a product that you can just get in and start editing and start making stuff. So that's why you need a lot of editors when you're doing trailer stuff. And it's all competition too. It's kind of crazy.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Is it like I noticed there were graphics both and the editing. So when you were editing trailers for like Us or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, what are they just like giving you raw footage? What are you working with?
So two very different circumstances. Us was fun because Us, you got to watch, you know, it's like Jordan Peele. Get Out was so big and so good. And it just like, you can't feed that crowd that wants your next thing. Like no matter what you do, it's not going to work as well as the first one did. And this one was really rushed out as well. And so I got to watch cut after cut coming through of him making different decisions and changing the movie. And I was like,
wow,
like you got to like the third version of it and you're just like, okay, I think I really like this one. And then they add like 2 or 3 more things. And I'm like, I think you might've lost me on this one though. So it's fun watching the cut come from a rough cut into like okay, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? You could tell when the test audience has seen the cut, because the cut will all of a sudden dramatically change and be like, oh, that wasn't working for people.
That's
doesn't really
not
matter
something
for
I
us.
pictured at all. So
Yeah.
they're sending you every single cut, including rough cut.
Boy, they're sending us every single cut, including rough cuts.
Wow.
In the case of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it's Tarantino, right? He can do whatever he wants. He sent us, I think it was about a 12-minute montage that we could use, and we could only choose from 2 different songs, and that was it. That's how we got to do it. And a lot of the stuff that was in the montage isn't even in the movie. So it was just, we got this. We know what the movie's about. We don't really know what the movie's about. We have this chunk of footage that's cut to nothing that you're just like, okay. And then you just start, messing around with it, and you start building a narrative, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I see this in my head. I know exactly what's going on off of this footage, because you have to in order to try to get other people to go, oh, okay.
Well, I was going to ask, like, in that ecosystem, how much control does a director or an executive producer have as far as influencing what they send to the advertising house to make a trailer? Or is that more the studio kind of throwing you something with their agenda, or a whole mess of stuff saying, do your best with it?
It depends. It's like, how big is the director? How small is the studio? So if you have a really big director, say Tarantino, right? He told us exactly how things are going to be, did the whole thing. And by probably, I only did version 1, and then they went with a different editor, a different cut, because that's how it was always going to be. And when you're just jumping into those things and you get to work on a big thing that's way beyond what you should do, like, if you knock it out of the park and they're just like, that's the most amazing thing ever, like, great, but it's a tall order, because you're going against like the best editors who they already want to work with anyway. Mm-hmm. So Tarantino has it to probably about like version 10, and then he's got better things to do, or he's working on different things, and the studio and him might start, I don't think we want to go your direction, we want to go more our direction, and the studio will just kind of take it over. He will always have an approval, but he won't be as in the weeds. Like, the directors aren't really that much in the weeds with the marketing, because it lasts so long. Mm-hmm. The other thing I was going to say in regards to footage is, you get a movie like Hobbs and Shaw. I worked on Hobbs and Shaw, right? We were getting the select dailies. So our assistant editors were putting together like 4.5-hour cuts of the movie that we would then pull footage from. And it's weird, because you're working on this thing and you're cutting this thing, and by the time you get the trailer, you're like, okay, we got a trailer. They give you the rough cut of the movie, and you kind of watch the rough cut of the movie, and you're like, I kind of got to rework the trailer. It's not the same movie as right. My assistant cut. So,
I mean, rough cuts I get, but if they're sending you dailies, you're kind of just guessing, right? Like, do they give you scripts, or are you just guessing?
You're producing all the scripts. You're doing everything. It's all a competition, and I think that's one of the reasons why directors fade away a little bit more and studios take over. And on the indie side, if you got a small studio and a decent director, like, they'll just be like, yeah, man, thank you for the movie, do whatever you want, talk to the editor, and then you get to work with the director more in that case. But the competition is like, so you get a movie. Let's just use Hobbs and Shaw as an example. You get Hobbs and Shaw, and they send it. They give the movie to like 3 different executives at the studio. Those 3 different executives go to 1 or 2 different trailer shops that they know the people, and are like, hey, I have this big movie. You need to work on this big movie and make a trailer. Now, those trailer shops, say there are now 3 to 5 of them in play, all have probably about 2 to 3, maybe even 4 editors cutting trailers for that one movie. So you're getting, it's bonkers, right? Because it's all a competition. Yeah. So the way it kind of works is, you get presented all this stuff, and the executive at the studio will whittle it down to like, okay, we like this one at this shop, 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 and these are what we're going to present. But by this point, before the movie's even made, they've almost seen every iteration of trailers that you can. So by the time the trailer comes out, it's like some really good stuff that would have worked initially doesn't work in their minds anymore, because they've seen everything so many different times and in so many different ways. And if you could do one little thing different in like the TV world or the social media world, they'll just be like, oh, that's genius. We haven't seen that yet. That's amazing, because they've seen every way you can cut this movie. And the one that catches their eye, they'll take that editor, they'll go, that's the cut we want. and then they'll work with that editor and completely redo the cut that they wanted anyway, because they wanted that cast to keep going through all the things. So it's just a long kind of, it's just a process of just making everyone happy. It's like politics, I imagine. It's this muddy, dirty process of making everyone happy, and it's very, very competitive.
Well, you're talking about trying to make something that really stands out. I remember from your lectures, the one trailer that was so unique, it almost didn't have anything to do with the movie, was the remake of the Stepford Wives.
Oh yeah.
I know we don't have visual here, but if you could like describe that and what worked about that.
Well, it's a teaser that's kind of, it's just made to be a teaser. It's almost like you're doing an ad. You're making an ad for the movie, right? So you're teasing that it's this, I can't even remember what it was now, but you're teasing that it's this thing that
I remember
it's a movie.
Yeah, it was more about the lifestyle, about luxury items, zooming in. It was almost like a combination of a car commercial and fancy kitchen appliances and jewelry. And then it just ends with the Stepford Wives. And for everyone who knows that title already and that it's a remake, they're like, oh shit, we're getting back into that can of worms.
Right. Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie had a TV spot with Ben Stein, and he was like with a bunch of kids at the Natural History Museum and talking about the Tyrannosaurus Rex like this, and all of a sudden this giant Godzilla foot comes down and crushes the T-Rex to kind of give you an idea of scale. And it's just like, that was not in the movie. Well, I don't think it was ever planned to be in the movie. It was just kind of there for, it was an ad they made
to catch your attention, to sell
sell
the feel.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That was kind of similar question, I guess, is when it comes to pitching your take on a trailer, we've talked about whether or not the studio or director has a hand in how the trailer should be. But when you do have free reign, or who on your end makes the decision to say, we're going to do something different. We're going to do a trailer that doesn't have any footage, or we're going to make something really unique.
It's hard to say, because a lot of those things get talked about in a series of board meetings where they're just like, let's just do something different. Like,
I'm sure there's a risk there.
Exactly. We did one where we were trying to, we were trying to copy an infomercial or something and made it about like a sunscreen product. And there's this movie called Rango. It's about a chameleon voiced by Johnny Depp. And we did a whole like, get Rango. It was kind of a pharmaceutical ad, but for sunscreen for the movie. And we did like that, but that's kind of using the footage that's more when you're just literally sitting around in your edit room, just going like, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. Should we do a Viagra ad? I don't know what to do anymore. You know, it gets to that point where you're throwing so many darts at the dartboard. It's like, oh man, especially for a movie like that has animation, because you can do so many silly kind of things with it. And kids are, if you're trying to get kids and you don't get kids, it's a nightmare, because you've spent so much time and money and all this. So you just keep trying and trying and trying. It's if you don't get the kids, pull out as quickly as possible and just take your losses, because
watching through some of those trailers, like the Pineapple Express one looked like a lot of behind the scenes and not actual.
So that was, it looks like behind the scenes, because that's the footage that they give you, because it's just got watermarks everywhere, and that's kind of what we're looking at. Yeah, so it looks like really crappy footage, and that was back in the day too, when the footage was really crappy, and they gave you a lot of watermarks, so you could barely tell what was going on. Mm-hmm. That was when I was an assistant editor. I mean, truth be told, I used to just when I went into the film industry, I kind of decided that a life wasn't really something I was going to have. Like, if there were parties with inside the industry, I would go. It'd be great. Everything would be fine. But I was kind of really just a workaholic. Like, I would just get stoned after my shift and then start editing different things. And when I entered the trailer world, we had Pineapple Express there, and they encourage, because it's all competition, so they encourage the assistant editors, like, make us stuff on your own time. Go for it. That's fine. And I'm just like, oh, you're gonna let me make stuff on my own time? I was thinking like an idiot. Like, I should have got paid for all that, but I didn't. It's young and stupid. Oh yeah, the amount of hours that I've given to this industry, just based on, oh, that sounds cool, and not really putting the numbers together in my head. Like, oh man, I needed an agent the whole time.
Yeah, I was in for 15 years, and I had to drop out because I couldn't do 100-hour weeks anymore.
yeah. At a certain point, you're just like, and you get to a certain level where you can say no, but like the trailer industry is not one of those places that you can do that. That's just, it's you're in it, and if you're extraordinary and like the studios just love you, because even if you're extraordinary, they still like, they have their notes. But if you have that combination, like you're just like friends with the person who says yes and whatnot, like then it's relatively easy. But other than that, it's just not. And that's, to go back to the Pineapple Express thing, that's how you get assistants to do all this work for you. And you're also, as an assistant, you're like, hey, look at me, I can edit. Hey, look at me, I can edit. So they're like, they want things that are outside of the box, and that's kind of what I do. It's why I don't have a lot of stuff that finishes, but I have a lot of stuff that gets to, an almost finish. And that was one of those projects where I was like, hey, I just got this album. Guy, what was his name? David Peel, I think. And it's a whole record, like 60s rocker dude who just sings about weed. The whole album is, and it's just like stoned out and hilarious. And he's got the song that goes, I like marijuana, you like marijuana, we like marijuana too. Marijuana. And that's all it does. That's it. Yeah. That's the whole song. So I was like, what if I just put a bouncing pot leaf and we just show all of the footage of these two guys getting really stoned? And then, slap it together with a montage of the chaos that this movie actually is, and then bring it back around to smoking weed. And they were just like, they saw that and they're like, well, I don't know what to do with this, but I think I want you to work on more things. So I started to get a lot more work after that. And then I went to work in, I worked at Union as an assistant, went to Ignition. These are sister companies. Went to Ignition as an assistant and got to the point where I was getting good enough to where the person who did the indie movies at Union said, hey, do you want to come edit for me? And I was just like, okay, I'll go edit for you. And that's where I did a lot of the faith-based movies.
Okay.
So this is where I got into a lot of Christian movies, because I was just one of his clients. If you take a step back and like look at the team that was putting all this stuff together, like Christians would not approve of us at all. Like not even a little bit. This team was insane. Like the least Christian people in the world. And we were making all these Christian Fireproof, which was like the #1 indie movie of the year. That year it came out, a Kirk Cameron movie. Like we did that whole campaign. My producer was like going through a midlife crisis, doing so much coke, and he had a black Ferrari. And there were a couple of moments where I was just like, I'm gonna die in this Ferrari. I think I'm gonna die in this Ferrari. It was just, and then our client at Sony was this amazing, super gay Asian man, and I was just like this little kind of not devil worshiping, but as soon as I could always make devil jokes whenever I always try to, stoner. And that was the team that was putting out all these faith-based movie trailers. Like we're the marketing team for the Christian movie sector of all their big indie movies. So that was a fun time. That was a fun time.
One of the trailers you shared with us to check out was from
Oh God.
Oh My God, or Oh God. And watching it, I was like, this seems really cool. And then I watched a little bit of the movie and went, oh, the really cool parts were just the graphics and sort of the effort that was put into making the trailer bit. It didn't really translate or didn't really reflect the actual film itself.
No, it was. It's still one of my favorite trailers because
it was good. I
mean, the movie is just a dude and his camera, just interviewing these people and sometimes framing them very poorly. Mm-hmm. Like, and I it's like this is like it's like the perfect music video length of stuff. Like there are all these really nice little nuggets throughout the thing. And it was a sales trailer. So I'll talk a little bit about that too. The difference between a sales trailer and a regular trailer is a sales trailer, you're just taking to distributors. You're not showing the public in any way, shape, or form. So you can put it on your reel after a few years, yada, yada, yada. That's like kind of a gray area. But you can use whatever music you want. You know, so in this one we have M83 and a Linkin Park instrumental, but it was just like the actual trailer that you'll see on YouTube is a different trailer completely. I mean, not completely. It's kind of still the same trailer, but we were able to use all those things, and that's the grand manipulation of the screen. Is the movie is a fraction of the journey that he took that he thought was the best thing to do. And the trailer is the fraction of that movie that I thought was the best part to get that. So it's all just these little like point of view fractions that we're making to try to appeal to the, biggest audience, but none of us have any idea what we're actually doing.
That's part of what's fascinating about it to me, though, is like the pacing in that trailer is so different from the pacing in most of your others because they're more mainstream, more commercial most of the time. So you're suiting what you're selling, whereas that it feels slow, meditative, very different.
Yeah, I was really trying to trying to help him sell his movie. It's like I did that with a movie that I recently worked on, this internet personality Squeezy. Like he's just trying to sell his movie.
Yeah, what was that? I was really caught off guard.
Yeah, no, Squeezy's amazing.
Never heard of him.
No, he's
never would.
That's it's the internet, man. It's such a weird place. Like you don't know what's going on, and then you find out what's going on. And you're like, what is this? And you're watching, and you're kind of like going, well, this seems ridiculous. But then you start watching it a little bit more, and you're just like, but after a couple months of watching this goofy dude, I can see how it can become very appealing. And then I got into his movie, and after making the trailer for it, I was like, I really like his movie. Like it's just everything fits about this for some reason. It all works in this weird, I don't know how way. You know what?
That little clip right there, I'm going to edit out of this and send to you because that was the best pitch for watching that movie. No offense to the trailer, but I think
you would love it.
Yeah. When you said, no, just stick with it. It'll grow on you. There's actually something that's really well put together when you give it a chance. I'm like, I might give it a chance now.
It's just, it's silly. And that's the thing. It's like, there's so much, in this day and age, I like go on the internet at any time and I'm angry within like 5 minutes. If you could give me silly and like silly and science, like mix those two things a little bit before you start making me angry, I'll be so much happier. Like even the Captain America trailer, it was brilliant. Like this new trailer, it's brilliant. They cut it like a horror movie trailer. Like, oh, finally, they're not just, trailerizing pop music. Amazing.
Oh, I'm sad that I have to ask which Captain America trailer because there's so many.
Oh God, I don't know. Whichever one just happened recently that they.
Oh, the newest one with the Red Hulk.
Yes, with the Red Hulk. Yes, okay. the Red Hulk. See, they give it all away eventually.
Bright colors are how I identify things.
Exactly. So it's very horror based, right? And it's very scary, and it's just like you're watching it and you're just going like, I'm fucking stressed out right now. Like it's the Marvel movie and I'm stressed out. Or Captain America, what is going on? Oh my God. It's like it's everything. It's just built to kind of stress you out or make you angry. So Squeezy is not that. Squeezy is not that.
I wanted to ask you kind of in your estimation, what is like the rubric for what makes a good trailer versus a basic trailer? I know the end goal on your end is, does it sell? Does it get us the job?
There is an answer to this question.
Oh,
what makes a good trailer is a really good movie. It's really that simple. Yeah, really. I mean, like, even if you have 2/3 of a good movie, like I recently watched The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's the Keanu Reeves version, right? The like early 2000s version. The trailer is spectacular. It's one of my favorite trailers ever. And you watch the movie and you're just like, they had 2/3 of a movie here. I don't know what happened at the end, but if you don't have an ending, that's fine for the trailer. So if you have 2/3 of a movie that can kind of keep it going, then you can still get a good trailer out of it. A bad movie, there's nothing you can edit your way out of it, but we know we're too smart now. You can't disguise a bad movie. If it's a bad movie, then I'm just like, oh, I know what kind of bad movie that's going to be. That makes it a little bit easier, but there's so many that get made now, and you're watching the trailers and you're just like, you guys are trying so hard here. Like, oof, you gotta stop. Like even Captain America, like all the different trailers, like just put out a teaser and a trailer and then like a social media blitz in the last 2 weeks. That's all we need. We don't need to know that this movie's coming a year in advance and then that it's coming 9 months in advance and then 6 months. It's like, I don't need to know this. However, this is how I make a living. So, keep paying me.
Nick, did you set out to be a trailer editor, or were you planning on being more of a feature editor? Where were you planning initially to be?
I was going to be Steven Spielberg. I was going to be the greatest editor. I was going to be the greatest director Hollywood ever saw.
So, I think we all start there.
Exactly. That's where I started. And then I went to the New York Film Academy, and we worked on a steam back. It was like cut and tape, and the film is going through. It's amazing. And the film I worked on, I was just like, I mean, I think I've worked like 36 straight hours in that room, and it's like, I think this is what I can do in this industry. Like, I know I can't be Spielberg. Maybe, who knows? You never know. But once you get there, you're just like, yeah, no. Maybe my grandson or something could be, but no, not me. So
editors are crucial, though. Like, none of the big directors would be anything without the editor, right? So
absolutely. I mean, it's an important job. There's so much needs to get edited. Say to anyone that I'm an editor and they will tell me about all this footage that they have. I'm just like, I'm not that kind of editor. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean I'd cut your thing.
You did say you're transitioning from trailers to editing indie features, though, didn't you?
I did indie. Well, strangely enough, when I first got started, just like everything in Hollywood, right? You start off wherever will give you a job. So I got a job in Extreme Makeover I changed out the light bulbs. That was my thing. I got really, really good at changing out light bulbs. I actually got a job at a school movie because they needed to change the light bulbs out regularly. So the fluorescent light bulbs, I was just so good at it. Talk about a niche. Like, I need to get into editing. I can't be the light bulb guy. That's not going to be a role in filmmaking. And so then I worked on The Simple Life, Paris and Nicole show. Yeah, no, season 1, 2 is good stuff. And then Viva La Bam, a couple of pilots that never made it. So I was in reality TV for a while, and then I was just like, you see the post production in reality TV, and you're like, this is just kind of a factory. People are just coming in at all hours, and they're taking producer notes and making them happen. I was like, I don't want to do that. So I applied to all these. I was like, they got to be places where they're just editing. And then I noticed there are all these post houses. I didn't realize they were all commercial. Like every post house is just commercials. So I went to Kinko's and faxed my resume to a bunch of them, and got a call from one of them and started working that way. And then because when I was sitting at the lunch table with an editor who didn't have an assistant yet, and he was talking about the Wild Bunch, and nobody knew the Wild Bunch, and I was like, fucking Wild Bunch, you kidding me? Wild Bunch is the best thing ever. And he just was like, you're my assistant. I was like, and there we go, moving up the ladder. And at that point, I also got a feature. So I was working late nights working on this feature film called Outside Sales. Cute little comedy, but like DV, little really small thing. So I thought I was just like headed for glory of feature films and everything, but then you kind of get wrapped up in a little bit of a bubble of commercials, and it becomes, you get so busy that those things that you were really passionate about and that you had time for, you still have the time for, but you just don't have the time for. It's like, I can't give you my whole life.
No, I mean, you got to go where the paychecks are if you want to stay in the industry. And then that's part of the problem, right? Like the tiny movies, they don't have the money.
They don't. You need to supplement them with the commercial work. And as an assistant editor, I was like doing my editor's double timey work too, because he would take on more than I. So I was just like, all of a sudden, I was like, there's too much here for me to juggle. I entered this contest for assistant editors that was for trailers, and when I was a runner, I entered it. You're supposed to take the genre of a movie and change it in a trailer.
Cool.
A lot of things have been like, you see a lot of stuff on the internet. There's like, oh, look at this. It's like, it's from that contest. And it's usually assistant editors in the commercial world. It's the AICP. I think they don't have a union in the commercial world, but the AICP is the kind of like the umbrella that does, tries to help you out, I guess. I don't know. Make sure that if you work in commercials, you have insurance at a post house or something. I don't know. Theoretically. Right. Exactly. So they put on this contest, and when I was a runner, I entered it and I turned The Exorcist into a gay priest love story with the St. Elmo's Fire music.
Nice.
Why didn't you send us that?
I don't know where it is, honestly.
Okay.
It's like, it's so old. This was like when I was a runner. I have to like do some, I thought I put it somewhere and it's like, oh, it's not there. I have no idea where it is.
I mean, just for the listeners, because hearing that, I'm excited to see it. Can you give us any kind of like how the narrative went? You have from The Exorcist.
It's basically it's this guy who's like, his day job is he's an exorcist and he's really stressed out. And then do you remember the guy, the other priest who's on the piano and like, my version of heaven is where they're playing this and they all love me. And so I tied those two in, and then the captain, the police captain, he kind of gets a little into both of them too, so I make him like this person who's breaking up their relationship, and like and Karis is like boxing and he's getting mad because he sees these other two are out together hanging out. It turns into a gay priest love story.
That's the best thing I've ever heard of.
It was after I was like, I think I'm gonna win this. This is amazing. And I was like, I had been working there for like 3 months. Like, who the fuck is this guy? And I got second place in it, so that was cool. The guy who got first place is he's still cutting trailers in Hollywood.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
I would think with something like that, was it, and this is going to lead to a broader question, but was it just not only editing different people supposedly looking at other people, but the right music as well?
Oh, when I put the St. Elmo's Fire, the dun 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 dun, like that was my whole back 2/3 while they were having all this problem. It's like, oh man, it was one of those things where I'm just like, I am the best at this. This is insane. I'm like 23 years old and I'm crushing it.
So editing the Bieber trailers, and there were several. Did you edit the full film?
I don't.
Or just
no, just the trailers. But we were starting there's a moment in the movie where he loses his voice. He like ruptures his vocal cords or something. And I remember up until that point, because John Chu would come in the building every once in a while, because we were kind of like building the campaign as they were building the movie, because it's just a concert film essentially, but things have to happen behind the scenes, and like nothing was happening behind the scenes. And then he got a vocal cord injury, and it was like, we have a movie. We have a movie. Bieber has to cancel something. Yeah, exactly. He has to cancel like 3 shows. This is amazing. We got drama. Fantastic. And then we just kept going at that point. But every like week it was a new direction, and every week you'd have to go back into all the home video stuff and just relive Bieber's life. I mean, if you have any questions about Bieber, I have his youth down way more than I should. His grandfather, wonderful man. When he died, you see the turn. Bieber starts becoming a little bit of a bad boy right at the same time. It's like, because grandpa was kind of holding the whole goodness together. Yeah, that's right. That's how deep I am in this.
I just didn't expect that we were going to do a dive into Justin Bieber's biography.
Weird side effect.
No, yeah, I'll stop. But yeah, it's 6 months on a campaign. These are the things that you don't get to always work on, fun, awesome things. Sometimes these fun, big, awesome things are like it was a really important movie. Like everybody was really anticipating it. So the marketing campaign was intense, but it's still like,
that's kind of what I'm getting from this, is that there's a high turnover, there's constant deadlines when it comes to trailers, but at the same time, in the course of meeting all of those, you are spending perhaps months with a project, even though it's like, we got to turn something around in next week, we got to get the next level. Or
yeah, I think less so now, because it's just not, the TV campaigns don't exist as much as they used to, so you don't have this buildup of doing 60-second spots, 30-second spots, 15-second spots that appear on TV, because what is TV? Who knows? You can subscribe your way out of any of that. So who's seeing all of this stuff anymore? So that those campaigns are now, they're just making more content. So they just need more trailers. So everything is trailers now, because they're just watching on YouTube anyway. So
I was just looking at the Wikipedia page for movie trailers and talking about where not too long ago, distributors or either distributors or theaters themselves started saying, we need trailers to be 2 minutes or less instead of like 2.5 or 3, to shave off a little more time for us to start the next movie after this one ends. Whereas what you're saying, like with the internet being probably the primary place people are seeing trailers, there doesn't have to be any restrictions necessarily.
Right, unless they're like the squeezy thing. I was told I have to be under 2 minutes, and every time I asked why, they're just like, it's the thing. Like, who's making these rules up? Like, I don't get it. It's the internet. Like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't even sold this movie, and you're putting it like. But it's, I get it. There are still all these little restrictions, and if you don't fall within them, you don't get seen at that particular place or thing. So you kind of have to play that game.
Yeah, the algorithm dictates everything, and you have no idea. It can shift from minute to minute.
Yeah.
Within the realm of long to short, that critics version of the Game of Thrones thing, which is like 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
Was that common practice, or is it common practice?
Nope. That was a very unique thing. That was, so usually what happens is when critics need to give, their reviews, they usually will go to a screening of the pilot, right? The pilot wasn't done. They had a lot of visual effects work that still needed to be done. So what they did is they're like, we have about the same amount of visual effects work that needs to get done in episodes 1 through 5. So tell the story of the main characters in episodes 1 through 5 in like the shortened trailer. So essentially I got to make the first thing that anyone ever saw in like we need to review this context. The funny thing was I made a review trailer with the reviews that were about the thing that I made I was like, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. So that was cool to be able to do that. And I gotta tell you, the weirdest thing about working on that particular show was I got so used to the audio that was recorded on set. All of a sudden one day, like everything was ADR'd, and I lost my mind for like 2 days. I was like, I can't even watch the show. I can't look at them, and they're talking so different and weird. And now I watch and I don't even notice it anymore. But it's funny how much of those shows are ADR'd.
Why?
Because you just get cleaner audio. You can do more to it. You get more. It's like everybody wants control of the thing, right? So if you can get things in a more controlled environment, you can have more control over what goes on when, it doesn't really, for my sake, listening to it, like the ADR drove me nuts. I thought the regular audio was recorded way better, but.
I had a question about that. Like, so when you're doing your editing process, do you get the liberty to put in different quotes or ADR as you're making the trailer and just reshape scenes as you need to?
In the studio side of things, yeah. And then you can usually get the actor to do so, like, okay, keep the line in there, and then 2 Thursdays from now we can get so and so to record the line, and then they'll just drop the line in there.
Oh, so sorry, a scene shot, you're getting footage. The movie is probably maybe still in production, but you're at the advertising company able to call in the actor to substitute in audio that would work better for the trailer than what's actually in the production.
The advertising company isn't calling them in. The studio would be calling them in, and we are then recording them for our purposes. Right. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen often enough where like they say a line that's like, they say a 6-word line and 2 of the words just aren't right. But if these 2 words were these 2 words, then it would help the whole thing. Then you can get them to come in and just record those lines.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's way more control than I thought you'd be able to have over that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you're doing so many things that, and that's why you could get them like, but like, 3 Thursdays down the line, because in 2 days that edit might be dead and you don't need it anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, why? This might not be a question that is answerable, but it seems like it would make more sense to edit from a locked cut. No? So why are you perpetually being handed cuts and then trying to sort through them and chaotic, right?
Boy, I tell you, as someone who is not trying to get jobs in the studio realm anymore, I can honestly say I have no fucking idea. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it. It's like when you're watching a cut, even like for big movies, even a rough cut, at least you get an idea of what they're looking for in some way, shape, or form. When you're doing these like 4.5, 5-hour assistant editor cuts to make something, you're just, it's like they're booking the best editors for huge chunks of time so they can say they're booking the best editors for huge chunks of time. I don't get it, because by the time the thing gets finished, you're using an almost locked cut for the footage anyway at that point. I mean, you'll see a lot of stuff in the early trailers that is that you won't see in the movie, and that's exactly why. It's because you're working off of a cut that never made it in the cut.
I feel like the entire industry is built around this principle. Do things in the most ass backwards way.
And then compete like crazy, because why cooperate? Why get a team together to figure something out that's going to be best for everyone when you can just send a bunch of chums to sharks?
Well, I was going to ask you about that too. I know you mentioned that there are awards for best trailers.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
And is that just more of an industry patting itself on the back, or does it actually propel assistant editors or editors who are craftsmen into better positions?
I like the trailer awards because there are 2 of them, which is great, because advertising. Ooh, look at that balloons.
Cool.
Advertising. There are so many awards. Oh my God. And they're all so expensive to enter. It's like, I need to get into the award show.
Wait,
game.
Expensive to enter?
Oh yeah. Yes. They cost thousands of dollars sometimes to enter. And if you want more than one trophy, the trophies are like $500 each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One giant pyramid scheme. That's
it's the award thing is wild, because everyone, you got to be cool by saying we don't care about the awards, but you have to enter everything into the awards in hopes that you get the awards. You can have the awards. You can say that you don't care about the awards.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in trailers, there's the golden trailers and the Clios. Those are kind of the 2, and they give them to editors. So I kind of like that, because they give them to the people who are like making the thing, which is cool. I appreciate that. But yeah, I don't know. The awards thing is funny. I got a couple awards, and it's just like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I felt really cool at the time, and then 10 minutes later, you're just like, what did I pay $500 for this thing? What am I doing?
What are some of the categories? Like, what are they looking for to rate trailers on?
Oh gosh.
Best explosion.
It's like
best voiceover guy.
Action, horror, voiceover for sure, sound design. Each genre will get a best of. You'll get a best in show. You get best sound design, best mix. Let's see, like best script. There's one category that I really, and I don't know if it will, but there's a super low budget category that I really want to enter the Squeezy trailer into, because I think it's like it's good enough, but the budget is like their ultra low budget category is $3.1 million and under. It's just like, that's a huge budget. Why the movies I work on are like $300,000 movies.
Yeah, I mean, even I did the producing end of things for a bit, and that kind of budget, there are still a lot of people down in LA that are like, you can't do anything with that amount of money, which to me seems like an obscene amount of money. But then you look at the actual budget, and everybody's earning minimum wage.
Yeah. Well, I found out when you're marketing a movie, a majority of the money, like 60% of the money, goes to essentially flying around and housing the actors to do promotional things. Like that, most of the money goes to just getting them out there and around.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah. Much wild. Like everything else, it's very impractical and makes no sense.
Yeah. It's so much work, so much effort, so much stress. It's like there's got to be a way to do this, but better. I mean, let's see, what else was there? Oh, there was the I gave you the other film that I worked on a campaign, Middlemen.
Right. So tell us about that one.
So this campaign was really interesting because Paramount picked it up, but Paramount picked it up because the guy Luke Wilson plays in Middlemen. The real guy was the executive producer, and he kind of funded everything. So we had this movie that's, it's fine. It's fine. It's not anything spectacular. It's like okay. It tells an interesting story about these two kind of coked out losers who created essentially internet credit card, which is just like a metaphor for the whole of the internet. It's just like, well, there you go. That's why it's all messy. go deeper and deeper. It gets messier and messier. But he funded the whole thing. That's how we got the Notorious B.I.G. track in there, and how we got all this money to make this crazy campaign, and how they got all those actors in there. Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to it as well, so much of it is who's funding it and how much are they willing to put into it. If you're willing to keep that checkbook open, we'll keep spending as much as you want. So that one, I think we probably spent way too much and didn't make that much of its money back. It's just, it didn't really do that well. But again, when you're in the trenches and you're working on these things, it's the most important movie ever. Like during that time, like when you're working on it, like, oh, if we just do these things, we're going to sell so much and it's going to be so great. It's the most important thing ever. It's like, no, the Day and Night, the Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz movie. Yeah. So we almost had every editor at our place. Like, I don't mean like 20 editors working on different approaches to the TV campaign for that thing, because everyone was freaking out because it was a bad movie. It's like, we can edit all night and someone's going to let, it's like Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory. You have all the people picking it. Someone's going to get the golden ticket. Like, you have all these editors going, someone's going to figure it out and going to sell, $100 million worth of tickets based on a TV spot. It's like, yeah, no, it's not. It's not happening. So those kinds of things happened all the time where I worked on so many things that I was on for like 5 days, and you're on it to like, think of something, hurry up. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. It's too hard.
It's so crazy how the film culture is, that you're constantly caught up in that whirlwind of, let's get it all done now. Everything's amazing and it's going to be so great. And then it's just sort of a perpetual like high-low thing. It's
a perpetual high-low constantly. I have a saying that, what's my favorite job? My favorite job is the one I just finished. What's my least favorite job? The one I'm in the middle of right now. It's like, it's a nightmare. I hate it. But when it's over, I'll look back and go, that's pretty good.
Every single editor I've ever had hates it while they're doing it, and then they're proud when they're done.
And when we start, we have no idea how people are paying us for this. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why people are paying me. I am so out of my league. I don't know why I decided to take this on. And then like a day and a half later, you're just like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why they pay me. I'm good at this. But I just take it. It's like you never, that first day, you just don't have it. You forget, especially on trailers, because there's so much pressure to make the best thing ever, and you're looking at it, you're just like, I don't know. So the first thing I had when I went into the real trailer world, the studio trailer world, when I wasn't an assistant after the Faith movies, I was working on Transformers 2 or 3. I think it was 2. And I was
the one with the cars.
Yeah, the one with the cars. Yeah, exactly. I think it was still Shia LaBeouf, so I think it was Transformers 2. So they wanted me to do this. It was a DVD spot, a nothing 15-second thing, and my creative director came in and he's like, I want you to really show me something out of the box here, like something really cool. So I'm looking at the campaign because I'm in the home entertainment side of it now, and I'm looking at the campaign of 8,000 different things that they made on this campaign, and I'm watching them just like, and they've done everything. I don't know what I could possibly do. I tortured myself for 4 or 5 days trying to make this 15-second spot, and it had the most edits you could possibly put into 15 seconds. It was so condensed, and I was doing things that were just insane. And I got to the point right as we're about to show it at the meeting, my project gets corrupted. My creative director looks at me and he's just like,
oh no,
well, I guess we're not showing it. And then leaves, and I'm stuck there going I can't reset my computer. I can't do anything. I'm frozen. And I'm like, oh my God. Cut to 2 days later, they give it to this other editor who had worked on the campaign, and I look at his edit, and it's got 4 edits in it. And I'm like,
oh no.
Oh my God.
Man.
Oh my God, what have I done? He's like, oh yeah, I knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, and then slap them together this way. I was like, oh man. At that point I realized I might be in too deep here. I might be in too deep. I'm giving this a little too much effort, and oof, I don't know. You gotta pick your battles. I was a kicker in football in college, and the way that you kick every kick the same. Whether it's a 50-yarder or a 20-yard, you kick it the same because that way you keep that trajectory going. That is not how it works in this industry. You really need to pick your battles and pick them well. Know when to you know what? I'm going to go home at 6 tonight and say, screw this and deal with it in the morning. Or am I going to stay here until 3 a.m. and torture myself and, still going to have to figure it out in the morning? It's got to pick those battles because both answers are correct and incorrect equally.
Yeah. There's a reason I think, some people in the industry long-term get very, very, very tired.
Yeah. I had USA Today. This year I looked it up, the most stressful jobs in the world, and video editor was number 2. Or most stressful jobs in America. Video editor was number 2. Urologist is number 1 because you have to tell people, terrible news all day. Yeah. I think anesthesiologist assistant was number 3. And I was just like, we're smack between urologist and anesthesiologist assistant. One, the people who are telling us what to do are insane if this is the amount of stress they're putting on us, that we are at urologist, anesthesiologist levels of stress. We're not saving any lives.
That's the perspective would be such a helpful thing for so many people. Yeah.
That's been the blessing about this modern work from home era. I'm still not convinced that I'm an AI right now. I don't see people outside of a screen anymore. So I'm like, I might just pretend to be fake from now on. Just I'm Nick, your AI editor that you'll never see, so you'll never know.
That would make a terrible movie. We've had this guy in a room for 3 years. He keeps working on everything we send him, and we don't do anything with it. But we tell him what a good job he's doing. We tell him 50% of the time, good job. Other 50%, man, you fucked that up.
See, the movie is you're a post house that hires a bunch of editors freelance, and after you get their likeness so often on the thing, you create their persona on a drive, and then just have this editor that everybody likes work on 6 jobs at a time while the actual editor is at home going, why am I not working? I don't understand it.
Oh,
that's my dystopian future.
Cold dose of reality there.
Well, after you live on the screen, all the meetings I take on Zoom, everything on Zoom, I'm just like, I don't know if these people are real. And I know it's kind of weird paranoid kind of thing, but when you really think about it, there are so many people that I work with I have never met in person. for all intents and purposes, we might just be artificial intelligence talking to each other on a Zoom box, you know? We're not, but do any of us know that for sure? Like, no, I don't know any of these people really.
Well, questions like that, it kind of makes me think about, you are also a writer as well. Outside of trailer editing, you've recently written a book.
I did. Yeah. The Wanderer's Guide to Spirituality.
Oh.
That is a editing turns out it gets you divorced and thinking about higher things. That's what I've learned. It's like it eats away a lot of your hours and gives you a lot of stress. So I was trying to combat the stress, trying to find purpose a little bit. So I started doing a lot of meditating, and then just started going down that rabbit hole deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and just wrote a book about it. But at the end of the day, it's all just about kind of keeping my stress levels even killed, keeping my creativity as high as it can kind of maintain. And that's kind of what it's all about. All the meditation, all the spirituality, all the everything, all the wacky stuff I've seen. It's just like all of it's kind of just still experience to kind of keep me sharp, because I just like creating things and writing things and doing, constantly trying to, I don't know, figure out what this human thing is, but at the same time, just kind of like ride the ride, because it's an interesting ride.
Yeah, it is. So that's okay. So right now, fewer trailers, it sounds like, and more just longer form editing. What are you working on?
Yeah, right now? It's weird because a lot of my skill set in the trailer world has made me appealing in the commercial world to do sizzle stuff. So that's like the stuff that's not consumer facing, it's more internally facing stuff. So you're working with movies and working with whatever, you're just trying to sell products or show off how cool you are, or any number of things. But it's all, when you're pitching something, you want your pitch to feel bigger than the campaign will be. So the trailer side of things that I come from making, because trailers, you're trying to make everything, handshake, boom, when it's everything gets a over exaggerated. Yeah, exactly. So when you're doing these things, you give the agencies a little bit of a leg up, because the stuff that I make is just more epic, because I pull from sources that most people in the commercial world don't know exist, because I spent so much time there. And I really like that epicness is what I like about the trailer world, that kind of can translate into the commercial world in the pitch sector, as it were. So I can't show you anything like that I've really done, because it's all pitch stuff and it's not really public facing. So it doesn't get on my website or anything like that, but it's really fun to edit. And when they win the work, it's like, well, I get a couple commercials out of it. That's cool.
That is not what I would have expected you'd be falling into, but it makes perfect sense when I think about it. You're taking trailer techniques and applying them to pitches.
And movie knowledge, like talkbacks and stuff, little funny things from movies that can, lighten the mood in the pitch, or do it that people are really familiar with.
Yeah.
Like all this knowledge I have in my head is really useful in this weird gray area of pitch work. Like,
I could see that.
Yeah, and I don't feel as bad about it, because when you're selling consumer-facing stuff, you're just manipulating people who probably aren't smart enough to know any better. When I'm selling it to them themselves, like, that's fine. If I manipulate them, I think that's a win for me. And then they're happy because they get something out of it, because they've been manipulated. They're like, that's what we want to do to them. That's great.
Right. Oh my goodness. Oh God, it's true.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been in advertising too long. It's too bad. The best was when I was watching Mad Men during Mad Men was on. You'd get all these ad folks who come into my office, and I'd be talking about Mad Men with them, just like, isn't it crazy how like spot on it is? And I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? It's silly. It's not. It's like, oh, you're also not self-aware too. It's just amazing. I just think they're just doing all this art and everything. It's like, no, we're selling things. We're manipulating, and we're selling. The shiny gloss that we're putting on it is unique and awesome and makes us good at what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not like making art. We're making Andy Warhol art. It's not real art. We're trying to sell stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what when it's with trailers, and with trailers are great because there's so much more editorial craft to it. But at the end of the day, you're still answering 20 to 30, 40 sometimes rounds of notes. So you want like a version 3 to get finished, and then you feel cool about yourself. If you're finishing a version 35, you're just like, oh.
Are you really getting 30 rounds of notes on average on a trailer?
That's probably minimum. Yeah, on an actual
insane.
Trailer. Yeah, we'd go up on like, I got Hobbs and Shaw was in the 60s or 70s on version numbers.
To me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Because again, it's like politics. You got to appease everybody who's got a stake in it, and when everybody needs to be appeased, all of a sudden it just falls apart at so many different levels, and then you have to rebuild it again, and then it falls apart, and then you have to rebuild it again. And it's also because they give us dailies, so they give the trailer editors like 6 months to work on this stuff. So by the time it's ready to like become public facing, everyone who needs to make a decision is so sick of looking at it. It's like you can't get anyone to make a real decision, and they're all surprised when they get back from testing. It's like nobody likes it. It's like, yeah, because version 3 was the good version.
Yeah, overworked it all to hell, took the life out of it.
Exactly. And in many cases, you'd never see that because trailers are still pretty. I mean, it's content. It's really it's made to do a thing, and usually does that thing very well. So it's hard to see like, oh, I see all the stuff that you didn't do. Like, no, you don't. But if you're in the thick of it and you're making it and you just watch those trailers, you're like, oh, can't even look at it. It's like I see all the stuff that they didn't do that they should have done. So it's fun.
100%.
The other fun thing in trailers is, and this happened again back when I was working there. This was 10 years ago. Might not be the same thing anymore, but you'd get a studio person who was friends with a person at like a trailer shop, and the work would be good from this trailer shop, but they really like the people from this trailer shop. And all of a sudden you start seeing the work on TV, and you're just like, that's my spot that they killed. It's got like 3 different shots in it. So there's that happens too. So you're trying to play favor to all of these studio people too, because it's competitive. So they can dangle a little bit like, oh, what are you going to do? So it's very
gross.
Yeah, it's gross.
That's
I love it's like the best editorially, it's the best thing in the world. But as an industry, it just, I mean, it's kicked my ass twice. Like twice I've had to leave it and just like, I can't do this. We're making movies here, people. Like we're trying to sell movies. It's like, this isn't as important as we think it is.
Yeah.
They just put too much money into it. And all that money just makes it that much grosser because it dilutes everything. It gives all these people all these different rounds. It's the beautiful thing about the indie trailer world is they have no money at all. So sometimes you just tell them like, no, actually that's the trailer you're going to get unless you want to redo it yourself. Like you're out of money. Yeah. You've been out of money from the word go. So, but it's fun because you have a lot more power, a lot more say, and you can kind of do things that they don't expect too, because you do have the knowledge, that knowledge of the studio world and going through all that kind of, although it is a hellscape, you do realize in a lot of cases, like in version 20, you're looking at the edit and you're like, oh yeah, we did like that part is finally perfect. It really is. They were right. You know, it's, you really do get some perfection in there when you get up to those levels, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And perfection, no one's really looking at perfection anyway. So it's just a matter of having done it over and over and over and over that you can't help but find the granular different things that you're trying to do at a certain point.
Yeah, 100% have been there. All right, I'm going to keep this from derailing too far into depressing conversation. Jason, do you have more questions?
I don't. I was actually thinking that we've covered so much really good ground.
So much probably good stuff. Yeah,
a good place to call it quits. The last thing I was gonna ask was where people can see your work. That's like finished products that are definitely yours, that have your fingerprints on it?
Stashmanedits.com. It is STACHEMANEDITS. Stashmanedits.com.
Awesome.
That's my website. So it's got up to date ish, more or less.
I'll put a link in the description for sure.
Sweet, thanks. Yeah, that's got it's got all my stuff, all the stuff I've done. It's fun to look back at it every once in a while and just go, wow, yeah, it's nice. The nice thing about this industry is like after years have passed and everything, and you go back and look at some stuff, you're just like, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I got to work on some pretty cool things, and that's when you're in it. It's really hard to see how. And you don't want to say lucky either, because it's not necessarily lucky, because it's a lot of work and a lot of effort to get to those places. But to work on some of those things that ended up being really good, like Game of Thrones, season 1 of Game of Thrones, like who knew? We were all like, they can't afford season 3. That's going to be insane doing all that stuff. And all of a sudden it just blew up. So like working on things like that are just, that will never not be cool to me. Oh, I did a thing for the Academy Museum, the museum in LA. It was just a teaser that played in the Oscars and on the Oscar broadcast. And it was, we revamped the Shining footage to have people cleaning up all the mess, and the revamp of the Overlook Hotel. That's on my website. And that one, we got to work with the Kubrick estate. We got to like get all the actual footage at its highest resolution from The Shining and do the whole thing. It was like, at that point, I was working at Joint, which is Wyden Kennedy's post house, and I was like, I think I need to quit. I don't think it gets better than this. I think I think I have peaked, and I need to get out of here before I start really getting disappointed, because it's too cool. Man. So like stuff like that, when you get to work on a spoof of a movie that was like your favorite movie ever, and got to work with the estate of the director, and it's just like, well, I kind of sort of got to work with Kubrick, so that's cool. It's like when I went to New York Film Academy, I went to the Boston version, which you take classes at the Harvard Faculty Club, so I sort of kind of went to Harvard.
It counts.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been amazing.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
It's been fun.
No, like I said, you've presented us a whole other world to movies and filmmaking that I knew nothing about, and it's incredible.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the first generation filmmaker. Like, whew, it's a bumpy road.
Been there. Yeah. Your energy is wonderful. It's very film person-y, and I enjoyed this a lot.
This has been the Miscellaneous Film Festival podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Jason.
And I'm Kristen.
And thanks again to Nick Davis.
Pleasure. Thanks, y'all.
All right, let's try this.
In a world where laughter was king.
It's not that kind of movie.
In a land that...
No, in a land either.
In a time...
Nah, I don't think so.
One man.
No.
When your life is no longer your own.
What does that mean?
When everything you know is wrong.
That's wrong.
In an outpost.
No.
On the edge of space.
It's just space.
A girl.
No.
Two girls.
No.
Now.
No.
More than ever.
Stop it.
A renegade cop.
I hate you.
A robot renegade cop.
You're fired.
You're fired.
No, you're actually fired.
I'm fired.
Get out of the booth, Jack.
No, I like it in here.